Just to start then, you've just come back and done some Big Finish, the two characters returning from Weng Chiang.
Yes, wonderful.
What is to your minds then, what is the perennial interest in these characters? Why do you think that they've come back after their television adventures some 30 years after? Trevor, you start.
Well, I think it's because I suppose the relationship is quite intriguing, really. As characters, they're chalk and cheese. I'll leave it to you to decide which is chalk and which is cheese. But they are so, in a way, unmatched that they're coming together in a friendship is I think, unusual. That's one reason. Speaking for myself from the inside, the interest is that the Big Finish productions develop the characters so that you've got the original potential in the television, and then you see more and more of them as an actor. You find more and more of that character as you go on developing it.
How about you, Chris? What?
I agree with Trevor. We did have a lot of fun doing it, and they did seem to work very well right from the start. And everybody knows they were going to make a series, weren't they, on television? You all probably know more about that than we do, but Richard Holmes sadly died, didn't he? Was it Richard or Robert? Robert Holmes. Richard Holmes is a biographer, isn't it?
That's right.
Robert Holmes, who wrote these wonderful characters, died, and Big Finish have taken them up, and they're continuing with them in exactly the right format, the right characters. Every writer for Big Finish seems to understand these characters perfectly.
It's wonderful to have a part written for you, isn't it?
We come to the script and we know immediately, here we are again, you know.
Yes.
And it's marvellous 30-odd years. Is it 30 years? Yeah. 30 years later.
Oh, it's more than 30 years.
To come back. We hadn't seen each other in that 30 years.
No, we hadn't at all. So it was...
And what we've missed.
I know, 30, all those lost years.
30 years of joyous friendship.
I know.
So what did you have to do for research or reference? Was it, like Christopher said, was it easy just to slip back into it? Are you essentially...
Oh, absolutely no research or reference at all.
Yeah, just didn't.
No, we got there on the day for the Mahogany Murderers, and they said, do you want to watch the Talons of Weng Chiang again? And Christopher and I looked at each other, and Christopher looked at me and went... And I said, oh no, we might think we were rather bad. So we didn't watch it again, and we just slipped into it. I mean, there was no problem. I mean, they were there, very well written for us, but somehow all that's still lodged in the brain and part of the wiring. And it all came out quite naturally, didn't it, Christopher? We had a very jolly day doing it.
And the wonderful thing is we don't have to learn the words.
No, wonderful. It's wonderful.
That's why I was going to ask you, is there a difference between television and radio? Obviously the obvious medium, but...
and we just sit, we can sit down and do it too, you know.
Yes, absolutely. It's very, very much easier. Radio is very much easier, because you don't have to remember moves, and you don't have to remember lines, and if you make a mistake, you can stop. So you can get the scissors in and edit it, and then...
And you get a wonderful lunch from Toby.
Yes.
Who runs the studio.
He's a sort of cordon bleu, so you get a wonderful lunch, and we all get on very well together, and you get a lot of actors together, you get a lot of talk. Yeah. So it's great fun.
And my understanding is that one box set's been released, and you're just about to record some more, is that right?
We start tomorrow, yes.
We start tomorrow. Now, one box set has been released.
Plus the Mahogany Murders, is that right?
There's the Mahogany Murders was a single. Then the Series 1 has been released. There's a Series 2 which we've already recorded, which is waiting to be released. And we're recording Series 3 starting tomorrow.
Are we? Yes.
Yes. Well, I hope you're going to be there.
You just said...
Well, I suppose I can say both parts.
Yeah, I didn't know there were that many series. But there is also another one planned for January.
For January, so there'll be a Series 4 too, if we're spared.
And Series 3 is going to be very interesting, but we're not allowed to say anything about it.
That's right.
So,
ooh, big surprise. You probably all know it anyway. You guys know everything.
So, taking it further back then, did you always want to become actors?
Yes, I did, yes.
Yes, from school. I started when I was about 12 and played little boy in Julius Caesar, playing a recorder, Brutus's page. And the boy playing Portia, if you know Julius Caesar, well, there was John Badley. Do you know John Badley, an actor? Anybody know him? Well, he's still acting. He played Portia, and I was their servant, and we were at school together, and on Thursday I go to their golden wedding. He's a man, really, although he played Portia. And he's married a woman, so... their golden wedding is on Thursday, and we've been friends for all that time. It's wonderful.
So right from a small child, age 12, you wanted to become an actor? Always something you
I think it
wanted?
was 15 when I actually said, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
It saves having to get 2 A-levels and things like that.
Okay. And Trevor, you said you always wanted to be an actor. Is that as young as Chris is?
Yes, about that sort of age, and perhaps a little younger even. I think I knew very, very early on, even probably before I knew really what actors were, in a strange sort of way. I mean, it's very odd how... And it's not a direct comparison, obviously, but the great writer Joseph Conrad lived in landlocked Poland, as it was at that time, but knew that he had to be a seaman. He knew he had to be a sailor. And you have these strange instincts in human beings. Before you know what it is about, what you want to be, you still want to be it, which is odd. And my first role was actually a girl. I played Mad Queen Margaret in Richard III, and that was a success.
Because often actors talk about, some other influence, but this, to my mind, listening to you talk, that the influence is coming from you. You wanted to be an actor, and none of your parents persuaded you.
No, my parents.
No. They didn't think that was a good idea. In those days, people were expected to get regular jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
And there were regular jobs to be had. In fact, most of the population were in them when I was young.
But I think most jobs now are almost as insecure as being an actor.
Oh, yes. I mean, people always used to say, it's a very insecure profession, yours. But now there isn't a profession that isn't insecure. Even bank managers, the height of security.
We know what redundancy is like. We get it every time we finish a job.
Yes, that's
Suddenly
right.
that's it. What's happening next?
Absolutely. That terrible feeling, I'll never work again. I mean,
Yes.
it happens time and again.
So what did your mum want you to do then, Trevor? What aspirations did she have if acting wasn't to be?
Well, I don't think they were ever voiced. I'm sure they existed, but I don't think they were ever voiced. I mean, once they realised that I was determined, they came alongside immediately. I have to say that. I didn't have to fight them. My father was in the post office, as it were, and that was telecommunications, like computers today. And he certainly didn't want me to go into that. So I wasn't up against any opposition. And they gave me an encouragement. And in those days, you could start things very early. I mean, I left school when I was 16 and went to RADA. And the course then was only 2 years, so I was out working as an actor when I was 18, which was terribly exciting.
Gosh, yeah.
Yes.
So what year were we talking about then?
We're talking about 1949 to 51 when I was at RADA. And of course, I was at school during the war. So it was exciting. They were exciting times.
Okay. And did your mum want you to do, Chris? What was her aspirations?
Well, she wasn't. It was my father who was most disappointed, because he had a music shop in Trowbridge, and selling. God, if I'd gone into that, I'd probably be a millionaire now, because it was the growth of the record industry and television and all that, and there it was in the 50s, just starting, and. We went down to Bath to the Theatre Royal, and we saw an opera, Marriage of Figaro, I think. And on the way back, I suppose by then I was about 17 or 18, I said to him, I'm going to be an actor, Dad. And there was this silence. He said, no, you're not. I said, well, we'll see. And that went on. And it was terribly sad, because he actually died in my first term at RADA. And that was pretty upsetting, really. One got quite a guilt complex about it. And I left RADA at that time and started running the shop for a bit, and suddenly realised the potential there. But I had no business sense, And my mother, in the end, insisted that I went back to RADA. And she sold up the business and lived in a bungalow on the proceeds.
So, Trevor, your early roles were without television being, in existence. I suppose early roles were stage and...
It was stage. And in those days, it was very lucky. You weren't expected to be a success immediately. It was all the juvenile leads in London, in the West End, were played by people of about 40 or older. They were wearing corsets. They got a lot of shading under the chin because there were footlights in those days, and so they could get away with it. But that sort of lighting, you couldn't get away with it today, but you could then. And the general pattern was that you left rather. You were expected to do about 10 years in rep, learning your craft, as they put it, and then you were expected to, if you were lucky, to surface. If you were good, and if you were lucky, you were expected to surface, and then you might make the West End, which was a very exclusive club of only about 100 or 150 actors at any given time. And so I had a joyous few years. I mean, I think we all thought we were much better than we were, which is a very good thing when you're young. Not sensible when you're older, but a very good thing when you're young. And I was in a company called the West of England Theatre Company, which had notables in it, such as Joan Plowright. You know, all young, enthusiastic. We put the set up ourselves, we had packed lunches, we didn't get drunk every night, we were very poorly paid. I think £7 a week was my wage, I think. We'd have a pint on Friday because it was the agricultural half hour. They were allowed to stay open for an extra half hour in the country. And so and that's all we could afford. We'd nurse, they'd say, you nursing that, you'd have a pint of beer and nurse that, and that was a great treat. But you played role after role after role, and I was only 19 or 20 and 21 then. And I was playing all these senior, mature people because I had a deep voice. Because in those days, older actors were more expensive. Now I'm an older actor. The irony is that I come just as cheaply as anybody else. But then, and of course, older actors couldn't have done that work, you know, putting up the set and driving back through the night from Chard and Dorchester and far-flung places like that to our base in Exmouth. And that was an absolutely joyous time. And then I went to the Liverpool Playhouse, which was a great thing to be in those days. You were almost a member of the town, you know, you were a figure in the town. It was a great sense of responsibility. And then one had to come and brave out, in a way, the loneliness of London, because then you haven't got that warmth of the camaraderie of rep. But, you know, the womb has to be left behind and comforts have to be left behind in life, and that was that. But those early years were extremely happy.
Were yours just as happy, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's oddly, I mean, my early experience was exactly the same. I started out in repertory, and I was playing old men right from the start because as you say, they couldn't afford real old men. And I started in Manchester, where I met my wife, and I was getting, I think, £10 a week or something. This was 1960 when we got married. So I rang up Reggie Solberg at Salisbury. I'd done 3 weeks there. And I said, Reggie, and he'd always said, let me know whenever you want to come join the company. And I said, Reggie, I'm going to leave Manchester, and I'd love to come and join your company. He said, oh, that's very nice, come along then. And I said, the only thing is I've got a wife, and she's an actress. He said, all right, bring her too. And so that's where we sort of started. And it all sort of come full circle, because at Salisbury in 1961, I played Falstaff in Henry IV, Part 1, and now I'm playing Falstaff in Midsummer, what's it called, Midsummer Murders? No. What's that play I'm in, Into the Globe?
The Merry Wives of Windsor.
Oh, that's right, The Merry Wives of Windsor. And now I'm doing it at the Globe, same character. But when I played Falstaff in 1961, William Gaunt, was playing Hotspur, and I used to carry him off the stage. And now he's at the Globe, not playing the same part, but still working in Henry IV, the same thing.
I have a question for both of you about the kind of the birth of television, if you like. So you were good stage jobbing actors, and then television was emerging in the late 50s. Did as actors at that time then, did you have any, were you cynical or thinking, this isn't going to work?
We were very snooty about it. Well, we don't want to be television actors. We said, we're stage actors.
Oh, yes.
And I was in Salisbury when the ITV strike was on, and suddenly all these actors who'd worked for Reggie in his companies before, started coming down doing guest appearances, coming from Emergency Ward 10 and things like that, because they were names, and I got furious because I was reduced to small parts while these big names came in, who were on strike.
And that's right, and in the beginning, of course, radio was very much bigger than television. Yes. And I remember the sort of culture shock when the Radio Times put the television programs first instead of the radio programs. You felt it was the decline of civilization.
Yeah.
So we were quite wrong, but I mean, that's how it felt at the time. And radio stars, there were a lot of radio stars, which were much more important than any of the television people.
Yes, there were. Yeah. Dick
And then-
Barton and all that.
All that, you know, Howard Marion Crawford, Boney Crawford, and they did wonderful things. I mean, the third program, they did wonderful program. I'll never forget, I was in a production of W.H. Auden's For the Time Being. It had music specially written for it by Matthias Scheiber. Esme Persay played Herod. Absolute galaxy of stars on that radio, giving these wonderful performances, introducing you into that wonderful work. You know, it was a very, very inspiring time. And television seemed a poor relative then.
It did. And I'd suffered the same as you, and suddenly the time came when I had to leave. You know, I was at Bristol then, and we made the big trip and settled in London. Suddenly, we were I wasn't in the company anymore, and there was this bleak future. Where's the next job coming? And I'd go up, and I'd do the odd television here and there, you know, which are now all coming back to me, things like little bits in The Prisoner and The Avengers and all that sort of thing, an odd day's work. And suddenly, playing big, fruity, leading parts in these theatres for 6 years, I was just doing odd little lines, you know. Said, "Where's that Benjamin? Come on, get out there, come on up here, do this," you know. And treated like a sort of nobody, and I hated that. Because I'd been the big leading man in repertory, and there I was playing bit parts in television. And I still am playing bit parts in television.
Well, I was going to say, has that attitude ever changed then? Do you actually prefer stage work to television work?
Yes, I prefer I get better parts on stage.
Yes, I prefer it. I can't really do stage work now, but I would prefer it, and because often the actual material is better. I mean, you're doing more interesting plays to start off with, and you've got longer to develop it. But on the other hand, television has its own challenges. I mean, there have been television things I've done which I have enjoyed, including Doctor Who. But it was that depth in theatre. You can, if you're lucky and the right cast, you can achieve a sort of depth of performance by doing it for a few weeks or a few months, which you can't get in the instant. On the other hand, filming, if you don't get it in that moment, if you don't get it on the take, you don't get it at all. Yeah. So that's a challenge in itself. That's also a stimulus.
I think Henry Gordon Jago was probably my first decent part on television. You know, certainly the one I enjoyed most.
Chris, as you pointed out, you've done so many what would be considered cult television roles in things like Doctor Who, like The Prisoner.
The odd ones here and there,
what's your postbag like then? Are there more Doctor Who fans interested to know about Doctor Who?
I think there's more Doctor Who than anything. But quite a lot of Prisoner ones come. And then odd ones here. Because The Prisoner's always linked with Danger Man, because that's where I first worked with Patrick, and it was from that he got me into The Prisoner, you know. But they were tiny little bits, and you'd never think it was something that would keep coming back up.
How about you, Trevor? You've done episodes of The Avengers, some of these cult television
That's
programs.
Right.
Adam Adamant Lives, for example.
That's right, and George and Mildred. I did a couple of those.
You've done the main one.
Well, it's sort of very strange. You get very strange letters. I mean, it's very nice that people should write, but you are a true... I saw you in George and Mildred, and you are a truly fabulous actor. I may be a truly fabulous actor, but how you can tell from George and Mildred playing the man who ran the Oxfam shop, I really don't know.
Oh, you were very good in that thing where the RSC went to Moscow.
Oh, yeah, The Englishman Abroad. Yes, that's right.
And you were that outfitter.
That's right, very snooty man who wouldn't sell the coral brown pyjamas because we provided them for the Queen. That's right.
Because, Chris, your engagement with Doctor Who happens early on in the story Inferno with John Pertwee.
Yes.
So at that point television had been going for 10 years by then. Were you and Doctor Who had been going certainly for 7 years. Were you I'm doing a Doctor Who. Is that a good thing? You don't need to be precious just because you're in the company of Doctor Who fans.
Well, no, I wasn't that knowledgeable about Doctor Who in those. I suppose my kids were watching it then, 73. And I didn't like that part very much, Professor Gold. I didn't know what to do with it, really. There was nothing much to it. No, it was a job, but it was 5 episodes and money, you know.
Yeah. Are you a science fiction fan?
Not particularly, no.
Are you?
No, not at all. In fact, the only Doctor Who I've ever watched is my own.
Yes.
Well, the thing about Talons is it wasn't sci-fi, was it? You know?
No.
It's a good old-fashioned.
It was good
Victorian
old-fashioned sort of melodrama of the Victorian era. Really.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not a great science fiction fan. I mean, I do read a lot, but just not that particular genre. You know.
Well, I quite enjoy the current Doctor Who. You know, when I watch it, it's pretty good.
But one has to remember at that time, when we were doing the Doctor Who, there was a lot of television. There was a lot of drama on television.
Yeah. We were kids' television, weren't we?
Really, it was children's, and you thought, all right, well, it's a very nice job. It's 6 weeks, 6 episodes, or however long it took, and you were pleased to do it. But it wasn't the sort of, it hadn't got the cachet that it's got now, because there was so much else going on. You know, there were a lot of serials going on, like Harper's West 1 and Emergency Ward 10.
Yes.
But there were also a lot of very good drama, Play for Today, the Wednesday play. And he would do Shakespeare and Ibsen on television. I was in Henry V and The Voice, The Inheritance. You did really good, serious drama, which in a way you don't get now.
Was Tom Baker a good leading man in terms of accommodating actors that came in and did those supporting
Well, we found
roles?
so, yes.
Yes, he was very good. I mean, the wonderful thing about Tom was his total belief in what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it's very easy in the theatre to think, I mean, it's like there was a period in life, I think, when a lot of women felt they married beneath them, and there are a lot of actors feel they've been cast beneath them. Do you know, they should be doing something better. And I mean, I know there have been people who've been years in Coronation Street and are a bit sniffy about it. Do you know?
Yes.
As though you know.
But can't get out of it.
But they can't get out of it.
Yeah.
But Tom wasn't like that. Tom really committed himself with total belief to that part, and that's why I think he was so good, which he was. I mean, it was just remarkable.
And he was very jolly, I thought, with us.
Oh yes,
we all got on terribly well.
We all got on very well indeed. He was a bit peated with me one day. There was a scene which I think I have the ice pack on my head, and I think he felt my lines were better than his. And he said to me, you see, Trevor, I'm supposed to have the good lines, not you. He was quite honest about it, and he would never rehearse this scene. He wouldn't rehearse it. And I can't say it looks any the worse than any of the others because of that. But he was quite awkward about that. But that was the only time, and I liked him and admired him very much.
I mean, the episodes of Talons of Weng Chiang, as you say, they're not particularly, they're not science fiction episodes, they're historical stories. Did you feel as though as actors you had to give way to any kind of special effects or any technical aspects of quite a technical show even in the 1970s?
Yeah, it was. No, we didn't have to give away. I mean, it was all part of it.
No one was just so happy not to have lost one's face.
It was when we got.
I mean, hiding behind that table where they were zapping it.
That's right.
And they were all packed with explosives which were going off. And confidence wasn't much given by the director told us that he'd done a shoot with somebody and this great oak tree had to be blown up. And the man who was doing the same effects with us. And apparently, the man, he said to him, oh yes, you know exactly what you've got to do. And he said, oh yes, he said, what I do is, when I learn the handkerchief like that, you blow it up. And he blew it up. And then, instead of waiting for the proper cue, he lowered the handkerchief and took me away, with not a camera anywhere near it. So when we were crouching behind that table, I was thinking, oh God, please let me come out with my whole face.
Yes.
But still good fun, though.
Oh, it was fun. Oh, yes, it was fun. No, we used to gig a lot. I mean, when we were
had that terrible thing in the
lift. We were in the lift, going up to the dragon room.
What they called those lasers? Dumb waiter, yes. We were stuck in.
Oh, it was awful. We got the terrible giggles, and they're very hard to stop once you start. And we knew that camera with this red light would be waiting for us when the doors opened, shaking with laughter.
I know at the very beginning we touched on the idea of the Jago and Litefoot spin-off in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And was that really a real possibility? How far did the conversations go with you two?
We didn't hear a thing. The first time I heard about it was meeting Doctor Who fans who told me.
Yes, that was the same with me. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Like most of what we know comes from you.
Yes.
Because I mean, we've been told that there was this possibility, but nothing more.
Yes, it was certainly mooted. It was in the Doctor Who publication, I think, and the fans used to say, "Oh, I believe they're thinking of it," but we were never told. And they have these board meetings and they discuss things like that. As you say, if the writer died, then that was it.
Yes.
Okay. And Christopher, you came back and did another Doctor Who very recently, The
Yes.
Unicorn and the Wasp with David Tennant.
Yes.
Had the programme moved? Well, technically, probably it moved on, but was it very different? since you left it and now you're coming
Well,
back to it?
it was different in that it was all film. And, I mean, when we did ours, we had a rehearsal period, we had an outdoor filming period, then we had a whole lot of studio stuff. So, and it was much more drawn out. And this one was just sort of a week or whatever it was, 2 weeks with odd days filming, and a lot more money spent on it. And but the feeling of the show was the same, in that we had an inspirational Doctor Who character who inspired everybody. I mean, David, like Tom, they loved what they were doing, and their energy transmitted to us. You know, if you've got the leading man going around being jolly and wonderful, then you can't say, oh, I don't want to do this. And it was nice to do, and I did get to be married to you know, the bottom of the year, what's her name? Yeah, yes.
Bad, is it?
It's terrible, this forgetfulness, you know, that comes in when one gets older.
And Trevor, did you watch Chris's Doctor Who, and do you watch the new Doctor Who?
No, he doesn't watch anything I do.
No, on moral grounds. No, I don't actually have a television, so I didn't watch them. No.
But we could all get together and buy him one. I think you can get them through Saga, you know, or Age Concern. Say, this poor chap up in his garage.
Do you not want a television?
No, I don't. No, it just doesn't part of my life. I had one, and I didn't have one until I was 55. And somebody said to me, I'm not at all technophobic. I mean, I love cyberspace and all of that. I'm a great one for all of that. And I read off Kindle. And I think it's wonderful. I love all that modern technology. But somebody said to me, well, it's so strange that you have all the computer and everything, you don't have a television. So I weakened and got one. And I watched occasionally. And then eventually it went wrong. You know, you had to thump it to get a picture. And I thought, I'm not going to replace it. I never watch it. And it just doesn't hone in on my life. Nothing ever happens at the right time and I want it to. And so I'm much happier without it.
I think, yes, I'm addicted to it now, especially with all Sky Plus and stuff. You can just record it, you know, and then watch it when you want.
I know.
You are missing out, Trevor.
You can't say you haven't got time for it because it'll be there recorded.
Yes, I know. It is absolutely true. It is absolutely true.
So we were talking outside, Trevor. So this, you know, your lack of television in your acting career, this has taken you more into writing and thinking about adaptations and writing. Is that something you've always been interested in?
Yes. Ideas is what I'm interested in, really. And one of the great events in my life was going to Latin America when I was just over 30. It was the days when they still did really big tours, because they thought that plays sold cars, I think, still in those days. And so we went on this enormous tour of South America, Ralph Richards and Barbara Jeffert, a company of 46, including ballet dancers, two quite dreadful productions of The Midsummer Night's Dream and Merchant of Venice. So Ralph Richards being really very bad in both of them, I have to say. But nevertheless, it took me to Latin America, and it was an absolute revelation. I mean, it was in 1964, when most people in those still weren't travelling at all. We had no high-rise building in this country. I remember getting off the plane, we started off in Mexico before going on to South America, and whispering to somebody saying, have you seen? The police are armed.
Yeah.
You know, it was amazing to see policemen wearing guns. We thought it was something that could never happen in this country. And of course now you've got Heathrow, and of course everything's bristling with submachine guns. But it was that their immediacy, their warmth, their generosity, that wonderful history they have, just inspired me. When I came back, I thought, I've got to put some of that out. Some of that's got to come out now. And so I've been writing with various mixtures of failure and success ever since.
Okay, thank you.
You know, you're wrong, I think, when you say it was just selling cars, because it was the British Council doing it.
Oh, it's the British Council.
Essentially cultural.
Yes.
And I've done the same, and we did a wonderful tour of Southeast Asia, playing in halls, school halls, and people would trek over the mountains to come to it.
This one was a bit more worldly. I mean, we would go to somewhere like Caracas, and it would be the oil community that came in. You know, the Americans. It was the rich that came in to see us. Not the Pueblos, not the native population at all.
The British Council did wonderful work now.
And they did do that.
They can do it anymore.
No, they don't. But I think it was because there was a sort of commercial nexus. It was thought that it was still the days of British prestige. There were those ludicrous poster campaigns. British butter is the best in the world. British cars are the best in the world. You couldn't say anything critical at all. I remember some reporter saying something to James Callaghan once, which was slightly critical, and he said, "Don't sell your country short." And what we lack in this country is a great deal of self-criticism. We need to be much more self-critical, and then we get off our asses and achieve more.
Thanks, Trevor.